Shelley, I see he's got, my red light came on.
Okay.
Apologies to folks in the gallery and folks who are watching at home. We're usually quite prompt with our call to order, but we had a technical problem at our in-camera session, so that took us off kilter. So I'm going to welcome everyone to this month's Committee of the Whole meeting, which resumes now following an in-camera session and a in-camera session. Reminder that we're being recorded, and you can watch this via live stream on our YouTube channel or at your convenience on that channel, and it'll be aired on Telil for the next 7 days. I'll begin by acknowledging that we are in here today gathered in Unama'ki, the land of the fog, a part of Mi'kma'ki, the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people since time immemorial. We honor and thank the Mi'kmaq for sharing their land with us. So item 4 on the agenda is recommendations from in camera. We have none that I'm aware of. Okay. So we'll move on to items or the approval of the agenda. So you have the agenda in front of you, which circulated last week. Are there any errors or additions? If there are none, I would entertain a motion to adopt. Moved by Deputy Warden Mumbercat and seconded by Councillor Brent Sampson that we approve the agenda as circulated. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. We have some minutes in our package, the minutes from the last Committee of the Whole meeting in April. Those are on, for folks who follow along at home, pages 3 to 7 of your online meeting package. Happy to have any discussion about errors or omissions, but if none, I would entertain a motion to adopt.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Deputy Warden Mumbercat. Can we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sean Sampson. Any concerns on the minutes to speak of? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so we have presentations to council. There's just one this evening, and it includes someone in the gallery and someone online. So I want to welcome online Matt Campbell from Deloitte, and in person, Martin Thompson, who is the energy manager for the town of Port Hawkesbury and the municipality of the county of Richmond. They're going to speak to us on the Strait of Canso domestic use clean fuels strategy, the final report. And so for folks who are interested in this presentation, there is a copy of the slide deck on pages 8 to 11 of your package, but there is also the full final report listed as a separate item in that same link in the same Committee of the Whole meeting package area. So I'll turn it over to Martin to start. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Warden. Thanks, Council, for allowing us to present the highlights of the Strait of Canso Clean Fuels Domestic Use Strategy here today. I want to apologise for making Council read a near 200-page report once again. I think it's third or fourth time now. We're joined today by Matt Campbell and Jennifer Ricard from Deloitte, who's been the lead consultants on this work. And also joining us is Phil Nass from Waterford Energy Services, who have been supporting Deloitte on the report. Council might remember Phil from the presentation on the infrastructure strategy that was done last year. So very quickly, I just want to highlight the overall purpose of why we did this study in the first place. So as we know, we have large clean fuels export projects proposed locally. We're already seeing benefits of that in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of investment, in terms of community engagement. But we thought, why not start sort of looking at how these clean fuels that are produced locally can also help to decarbonize and create business opportunities locally. And in addition to that, how could they potentially also attract new industries? So we weren't the only ones with those kind of thoughts. So this was actually a real partnership effort between Municipality of the County of Richmond, Town of Port Hawkesbury, Baltic First Nations, Port Hawkesbury Paper, Everwind, Cape Breton Partnership, and the province of Nova Scotia. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all those partners who gave their time, effort, and finance to this project. So without further ado, I will hand over to Matt, I believe, first, who will take you through the report, along with Jennifer and Phil, and then I will round out the presentation with a few comments on next steps once they're done. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Martin. We're trying to share our screen. I just want to make sure that folks in the room can see the screen from their end.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, super, and you've got the presentation as the warden noted. So first of all, just thank you again, and I think, Mark, you did a really great job setting up the purpose of the study. The purpose of tonight is really to share some of the highlights of the report. So, you know, if you haven't finished going through the 200 pages, this is a bit of a Cole's Notes of the study. So we wanted to share kind of where we think the region appears best positioned to take advantage of the opportunity, what the analysis tells us around clean fuels adoption in the Strait of Canso, what are some practical next steps that could help the region build momentum. And then finally, I do want to give a special thank you to all the study partners, including MOCR, Port Hawkesbury, Everwind, Boatledeck First Nation, Port Hawkesbury Paper, and the Cape Breton Partnership, and of course, Waterford Energy Services working closely with us. And of course, Martin was instrumental from start to finish. So over the next kind of 17 minutes or so, we're going to talk about a couple things, and maybe I'll just start with an introduction. So my name is Matt Campbell, and I lead Deloitte's energy system transformation work here in Atlantic Canada. I'm down the road in Halifax, and I regret I'm unable to be with you this evening, but glad that Martin's here representing the project team. Over the next 18 minutes, we'll walk through the fuels and sectors that were included in the analysis. So what did we look at? What was included? What wasn't included? We'll do an overview of some of the community and industry engagement that informed the work, both virtually and in person and through site visits. We're going to cover some of the highlights of what the analysis shows, including the strongest opportunities for the region. We'll briefly touch on investment attraction opportunities. So what kind of businesses could potentially be incentivized to co-locate or locate and use some of these clean fuels being produced locally in the future. And then we'll close with a handful of proposed pilot projects that Phil will walk us through, along with some recommendations and next steps. So with this, I'll hand it over to Jennifer, who will walk us through the fuels that were included in the study, and they all do have a connection with hydrogen. So over to you, Jennifer.
Perfect, thanks, Matt. So as Matt was saying, our focus was specifically on green hydrogen and its derivatives for this particular scope of work. And that included green hydrogen in itself, as well as ammonia, methanol, sustainable aviation fuels, so SAF, and renewable diesel, that are all produced using low carbon or renewable processes, hence the word and qualifier green. Our concentrating on hydrogen and its derivatives was a strategy to identify some of the most promising opportunities for potential offtake and demand aggregation, economic growth, and also decarbonization in the region. And some of the industries and sectoral applications for this scope of work and analysis included looking at opportunities across various industries, including heavy industry, marine applications, freight, transportation, aviation, fleets, and utilities. Move to the next slide, please. And so to analyze the potential demand for hydrogen and its derivatives, we, and under the guidance of our project partners, we divided the local economy into a number of sectors that could lend themselves to clean fuels adoption. So we looked at 5 core sectors in the Strait region, and those were industrial, so manufacturing, marine vessels. We know that the region has a great history in marine. We looked at transportation, government operations, and utilities. And so for each of those sectors, we broke them down into a number of subsectors so that we could relate them back to and sort of categorize local organizations and businesses in the regions back into each of the sectors. It enabled us essentially to identify current fuel usage and the equivalent clean fuel requirements for each of these sectors and sort of aggregated business organizations. And so to set the stage for the analysis, we did a literature review where we looked around the world based on work we've been exposed to across Canada, Europe, Asia, to really understand who's adopting these clean fuels specifically in these different sectors, what are the potential applications in heavy industry, processing plants, mobility fuels, and then we summarized the clean fuel adoption trends, and since there really are hundreds of potential applications, we narrowed them down to what's most applicable to the Strait region using a pretty structured approach. And we aim to speak to and engage with local businesses and organizations that you see here on screen across all of these sectors to understand what their specific operational context is, and what's technically feasible locally, and also what's economically possible. And so to engage with industry and the community, we have our next slide, so I can show you what approach we took. So really what we wanted to do here is to make sure that the domestic clean fuel use strategy really captures that local operating context for those organizations within the Strait. And so to capture that local context, we had 4 modes of engagement that were planned throughout the project. The first one was a fuel use questionnaire that we sent out to organizations throughout the area and even beyond in the surrounding areas to capture the actual current usage of fuel in a more quantitative way. So we essentially asked what the fuel use volumes were to get an understanding of what the potential demand for hydrogen and derivatives would be, combined among these companies and ultimately within the sector subsectors. And it was also designed to give us a sense of the base understanding of clean fuel applications from the organizations so that we could tailor our conversations and our content to meet them where they are and do some level setting wherever that was needed. The second was that we offered a webinar in collaboration with the Atlantic Hydrogen Alliance in September of last year that was open to the public. There we shared some information about the project and its background, and the main goal was to raise awareness as early as possible in the project among the community members and the organizations that we'd be engaging with throughout the project and why we were doing this. And the last 2 modes of engagement were site visits that was followed by a workshop. All of those took place in October of last year within a couple of days. And really what this allowed us to do was to double click on select organizations and their specific context infrastructure, to see their facilities, to really understand what the adoption readiness looked like on the ground, and the technical requirements and equipment, infrastructure needs for them to actually adopt clean fuels, and that informed the basis of the pilot projects that Phil is going to walk us through. So the workshop was a half-day session that was attended by representatives from municipalities, indigenous communities, industry and transport providers, many of which Matt was just mentioning earlier. There we talked about potential pathways for the adoption of those clean fuels and then captured any detailed insights from their perspective on what priorities they have faced and also what barriers come in the way. And those insights fed directly into the development of the tailored recommendations and next steps that also consider the role that organizations could have in developing sort of a clean fuel ecosystem domestically. And based on what they see as a priority, I think Matt is going to share this with us later. And I'll pass it over to you.
Very good. Well, some really beautiful shots from the workshops as well, and really great attendance. So thank you to Martin and Troy as well for really connecting us with organizations across the community for that. Okay, so what did the analysis tell us? So as we were doing our global literature review, looking at all of those case studies and applications of clean fuels, we learned that quite a few of the clean fuel technologies are already being used commercially, whereas many of them are still kind of moving through pilots and early demonstrations. And so we found for the Strait region that the strongest near-term opportunity is something called renewable diesel. Renewable diesel can be used in many existing diesel engines without major retrofits, which makes it relevant for municipal fleets, for public works equipment, for marine support vessels, as well as some industrial equipment. So we thought that was a really strong first step to kind of help decarbonize the Strait region without spending considerable sums on either infrastructure or retrofitting engines and applications. Second opportunity around hydrogen was around potential for transit, for freight, for some port equipment and industrial heat. But hydrogen really does depend more heavily on fuel availability. There are pilot projects across the country that are struggling to get hydrogen today. And so availability is a key issue. Of course, if hydrogen is being produced in your backyard, that concern goes away. But there still are other factors such as fuel cost. It has to be costed as the right price for operators and for customers, as well as infrastructure to move that fuel across the region. So hydrogen, we think, is more of a medium-term opportunity, whereas renewable diesel could be a nearer term. There's also ammonia and methanol, which Jennifer spoke about. These are more emerging opportunities. Both are hydrogen-based. Of course, ammonia being looked at for export from the Everwind facility. These have applications in marine shipping, powering large vessels, bunkering, and certain industrial uses. They align well with the Strait's port infrastructure and the large industrial base that you have. Will take some time and coordination to develop and making sure that the demand is there. So that classic kind of chicken-egg problem does exist in the ammonia and methanol space as well. Sustainable aviation fuel is growing globally. It could be relevant to the McEachen Airport, provided that the right supply, demand, and policy supports are in place. So it does come down to cost. But we did, in discussions with the airport, see a lot of interest in adopting sustainable aviation fuel. And the quantities that would satisfy the airport's need could certainly be provided if there was a local production site. And certainly not in the Strait region, but nearby. Of course, we have Nova Sustainable Fuels advancing a sustainable aviation fuel project. So that could be a potential opportunity in the kind of medium term. So those were a number of opportunities for the region. And we'll kind of come back to recommendations and some pilot projects, but I'll touch very briefly on investment attraction and then hand it over to Phil. But based on the readiness assessment, we saw really 4 areas kind of stand out. This is marine. Actually, I'll skip right to investment attraction here. So we saw a couple of opportunities in investment attraction around ammonia and fertilizer production. Some potential companies have been identified down below, as well as energy and industrial gases. These are large-scale companies that use hydrogen and other clean fuels as inputs, and could be strong targets for kind of first priority investment attraction efforts, working with Invest Nova Scotia, working with the federal counterparts. Another priority we thought for investment attraction could be e-methanol production. We talked about how methanol has a growing role in commercial shipping. If you look at the order books, there's a growing number of vessels around the world, and growing share of these shipping vessels that use methanol as a source of fuel. So we do see an opportunity there for e-methanol production using hydrogen as a key input. A number of producers listed down below. SAF production, of course, we talked about the project in Goldboro, but there could be a project co-located in the Strait area as well, using hydrogen as an input. But interestingly, aquaculture jumped out to us. When you produce green hydrogen through electrolysis, which is contemplated through the Everwind project, you're actually producing oxygen as a product, and you're actually producing like 8 molecules of oxygen for every 1 molecule of hydrogen. So you've got a lot of oxygen as a byproduct of the facility. So if you're able to use that oxygen, you can really have this economical system. So aquaculture is a major user of oxygen in large quantities. So aquaculture could be an industry that is co-located with a hydrogen production facility. And we have seen a number of examples of that in Europe. Of course, oxygen can be used as an industrial gas and distributed that way. So hence kind of this as
Are you still there?
That you're froze.
We're just batting 1,000.
Yeah, I just thought he
Wow.
was, yeah. Does somebody want to take over for him?
Maybe over to Phil.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you back.
Yeah, I need to change my internet service provider, I think. Not the first time today.
Maybe we could give them some of the oxygen.
That's right. So you have to go to the report for the section on investment attraction. Maybe, Phil, I'll pass it over to you while my internet's still working, and you can walk us through the proposed pilot projects.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, thanks, Matt. So our involvement was to help assess the infrastructure on site. So based on our previous experience in the area, we did have a good layout of the area and understanding of some of the facilities and equipment that they had. So as Matt said, we had 4 different opportunities that were kind of tagged for pilot projects. So we look at these as sort of short-term and then medium-term opportunities. So the hydrogen for on-road mobility, hydrogen for electricity and blending, ammonia for marine mobility, and then the renewable diesel opportunity. So for each of these, we tried to envision what a early scale pilot project might look like, and then a future scale, either when volumes were more readily available, or there was just more off-takers, more users that were using the product. So for the on-road mobility of hydrogen, pilot scale project, we can look at hydrogen truck fleets that can bolt on a unit to be dual fuel, so they can maintain their diesel capacity but still use hydrogen as well. So they take a small step into learnings, both maintenance, operations, and capabilities of those types of vehicles. And that can be accomplished with a mobile refueling station. So hydrogen could be trucked into the site, stored, and refueled trucks as they came by. So that's not a difficult opportunity to envision. So a 15 to 18 month time frame, that could be up and running in the area. A little greater version of that, a little more production, everyone's up and operating, so we've got more access to hydrogen volumes. We've seen some uptake and some operational experience by users. Maybe other users are looking to adopt as well. So now we can look at a more permanent hydrogen refueling station, which may involve a pipeline running out of the Everwind site, let's say, to a refueling station that would just look like a normal gas station for most people. The hydrogen for electricity and blending, this opportunity, even for pilot scale, we see is a little bit further down the road. So the natural gas system that's in the area that's servicing a few of the local industries, there's an ability to blend hydrogen within that natural gas system, reduce the carbon emissions from the boiler or burners that are using that product, and just generally be a replacement fuel. The low volumes of hydrogen can be put into that system without any meaningful upgrades to the local industry, whatever that is, the pipeline and their local equipment. So small scale blending unit could be put on a site of a single user, tied into their natural gas line, and just feed their facility. So it wouldn't be an overall blending to the whole system, but just to the one facility. So the Nova Scotia Power site that's on Port Hawkesbury Papers lands, for example, uses natural gas for their heating now. That could be converted and to allow some blending in that facility. Further down the road, again, looking for larger volumes of hydrogen and more uptake, more users. The system itself that carries natural gas through the entire Strait area, there could be a blending unit added to that entire system, so therefore anybody downstream got the blended fuel into their facility. Also looking potentially at some users who don't have natural gas now, could have access, if that line was extended just a very little bit, to some of the further reaches of the region. But again, those are looking further down the road, just based on the complexity that would be needed and some evaluation that would be done, and then the volumes of hydrogen needed to make any real meaningful difference in the blending. For marine mobility and ammonia use, again, with the Everwind facility up and operating, ammonia should be readily available on site. So a pilot project envisioned is a fuel barge. So this barge could be positioned in the strait, fueled at the Everwind site, and then moved potentially to a different port for refueling. So a vessel was calling on Port Hawkesbury Paper, Cabot Gypsum, Martin Marietta, those types of areas. The barge could be transported down to those areas so that that vessel could maintain its production schedule, whether it's onloading or offloading, and then still refuel with ammonia via the barge. So that, again, could happen once the ammonia is available in the region. Further down the road, we envision that ammonia-fueled vessels are actually going to be available. And in particular, some of the vessels that are being used and thought about for that application are the vessels that are going to carry ammonia. So these transatlantic vessels that would go from Everwind site to the European market are actually being envisioned as ammonia-fueled as well. So they would be carriers plus fuel usage. So having the fuel readily available and those vessels makes a nice combination. A renewable diesel, as Matt said, it's a drop-in fuel. It's readily available in certain areas, and it requires basically no change to your engines or equipment that you want to use it in. So for trucking fleets or municipal or things like that, it can just be dropped into your normal tank. So from that case, we would need a fueling station for a pilot project. Again, that could be carried out in a short time frame, 15 to 18 months. And then a more permanent refueling station, looking at once larger volumes of renewable diesel are available and there's more uptake in the market.
Very good. I think we're just about at the end of our time, so I think this is the last slide. We do think there are a couple of really great opportunities and actions that can be taken. So we've kind of grouped them under a couple of themes. The first one really being about regional coordination and governance. So we had a couple of recommendations we put forward around establishing a more permanent kind of clean fuels working group to kind of build shared purpose and momentum and build on all of the work that the region and all the municipalities and the First Nations have been doing. Second one, around supporting community workforce readiness through the ecosystem. And then we had a couple of recommendations around funding pathways. So to make some of these pilot projects viable, I think there is a requirement to secure funding for these pilot projects and kind of align as a region to put some of that in place and develop a bit of a prioritized list of projects. So we've put forward lots of ideas, but it's really up to the region to decide, okay, which ones of these do we want to pursue, right? And then relatedly, supporting strategic industry investment attraction through collaboration with groups like we mentioned earlier, Invest in Scotia, Invest in Canada, through a bit of a shared project pipeline. We think there's a lot of opportunity here, particularly as the major projects reach FID and things are really moving forward. Finally, around shared infrastructure and planning, there is a bit of an opportunity and requirement to prioritize these early pilot projects, prepare for a future state infrastructure pathways so that we're paying for things in a way that makes sense, and sequencing things to avoid duplication and inefficient routing in the long term. And then finally, advancing a broader set of clean fuels adoption opportunities. We've kind of highlighted what we think is feasible in the next 5, 6, 7 years, but the market will change. What ships are using will change. Technology will change. And so you'll have to reevaluate in 5, 6, 7 years. Okay, what are opportunities now that are available? And maybe we make some headway on beyond the pilot projects and we move forward in a number of other areas, particularly as clean fuel starts to be produced locally. So with that, I'll thank again Council for having us, and apologies for going over our time limit and for my spotty internet, but it's been a real pleasure working with the team here, and thank you to our project sponsor, Troy here, and to Martin and to all of our project partners. So thank you again, and I'll pass it back to, I think, the warden.
Actually, I think we're going to Martin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin will put a bow on this. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay, I'll be very brief. So yeah, just touching upon on the next steps here. So immediate next steps. We're looking to publish the report on the municipal website this week, as well as www.thestraightocouncil.ca. And then a project steering committee, which is composed of all the funders and project partners. A meeting is being scheduled for June. So that meeting will be used to debrief this project process, what went well, what could have gone better. But really, we're also looking at particularly recommendation number 1 that Matt mentioned there, like reorganizing this initiative into this regional working group, which is the number 1 recommendation. And then finally, we will also be looking at those 4 pilot projects that Phil was talking about. One in particular is actually already seeing a bit of interest locally. So that's a good sign. And actually there's a similar initiative on the mainland to that one, which could further aggregate some potential demand and some economies of scale. So I've also joined the working group on the mainland side to kind of try and explore those synergies. The CAO and myself are attending World Hydrogen Summit in Rotterdam next week. I will be bringing this report and really looking to connect with companies and communities that have expertise in hydrogen application as they're outlined here, and really get some more, further feedback on the recommendations in the report and particularly the proposed pilot projects. And as always, we will also look to promote the area for investment opportunities, and as Matt's slide showed, there's certainly some tangible sectors we can point to there, highlighted in the report. So really, my role going forward in all of this, I mean, I realize the municipality itself will likely not be a huge off-taker of hydrogen in the near future. However, what we heard during a lot of the engagement activity is that there's really identified a need for someone to take a facilitating role in all of this, because it will require a lot of partners to keep coming back to the table, both from industry, from all levels of government, including planning, also including industry associations. So I will propose to the steering committee when we meet in June that I can take on that role. I can sort of try and quarterback this. Yeah, and then really it's about spreading the word. A lot of this is fairly new thinking to the area, so a lot of local businesses and stakeholders were engaged with the process, but I think there's learning for a much broader audience in this report. And I think what we really want to kind of try and push through is that this highlights opportunities not only to decarbonize and grow local industry. It's also about enhancing energy security in a world where I think at the moment we're all feeling the pressures of the cost of energy. So I'll end it there, but the team and I are happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all our presenters online and in person. And so I'll throw it out to councillors who may have some questions. I'll start with Deputy Warden Mumbercut.
Thank you, Warden. So thank you very much, folks. I participated in the workshop and at different points for this project, so really just want to say well done. And I know it's been a little bit of time in coming, but the 200 pages was worth it, I promise. I have a couple things I wanted to say. You mentioned Rotterdam. Great timing for this to be coming to us now publicly, so that you can bring that with you. But just wondering, like, I know you've got a package of promotional stuff. Is there a possibility to maybe bring some of the slides from the presentation so that you have like really quick snapshots to share with industry of what the opportunity is?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So I will be bringing my tablet to the conference venue as well. So yeah, I'll check with Matt and the team, but hopefully they're okay with me using those slides there. And that's a great idea. We'll have it at the booth. Yeah.
The other thing
All yours.
Awesome, thank you. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was kind of more on the content side of thing. When I look at the proposed pilot projects, and you're talking about hydrogen for on-the-road mobility. That's a real area of focus for the Atlantic Hydrogen Alliance right now, and I'm sure you've been talking to Derek about this. So, okay, that's great. I just wanted to make sure that linkage was being made, because they're looking at sort of, Bridgewater to Truro to, and then up this way. Yeah, go ahead. Get something to say. I love it.
So that's the working group on the mainland that I have joined. Yeah, sorry.
I wasn't sure.
I wasn't sure how much I could share, but seeing you said it, that's fine.
Cat's out of the bag now. I'm really bad at keeping a secret. You know, people know this about me. Okay, so that's really great to hear. And I did want to also mention that, you know, when it comes to convening a group, I think this is really perfect timing because the broader task force for offshore wind kind of wrapped up, and it's been feeling like onshore wind, hydrogen, it doesn't really have a home, you know, so I really love the idea of establishing an energy sector group. I've had some chats with folks in the region about it, including at the province, and really putting a hyper focus on the Strait of Canso, but also, you know, northeastern ports, working with the Port of Sydney potentially, and I know some of the folks from Sydney have been really interested in that too. So this could be the 1-2 punch that we're looking for to really focus in the attention, reestablish the commitment on energy, but in a way that feels a little less sort of amorphous, you know, and I think at the end of the day, the role of ports needs to be kind of front and center on this too. So where my head was headed was energy and ports. And so I've had some initial conversations with folks about that, but more to do. So I'd be really interested to stay connected to that conversation. Great job, you guys. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Councillor Marchand?
Thank you, Warden. Well, Martin, another long document again. If I got anything from it, I guess this renewable diesel is one of the things we can do now, whether or not the green hydrogen proceeds. But a lot of these pilots here seem to, like the ammonia bunkering that you speak of and the hydrogen blending, all those things, those pilots, if you're going to put them in operation, it doesn't seem we have the things here to be doing that with the infrastructure here. So are your pilots doing the infrastructure first, which is costly, before you're doing a pilot? It just seems these are costly ventures when we don't even have plants here yet.
Yeah, I can maybe answer first, and then I'll pass it on to maybe Phil or whoever wants to take it online. I think that's a very valid point. It's all fairly new stuff, and a lot of the conditions that are needed to enable it to happen are not yet here. So I think it's a very fair comment. So a pilot project would be looking to put some of that in place in a small scale. But as Matt's touched upon, for the pilot projects, it's going to be hard to do these pilot projects purely on market conditions. So we would be looking to get a lot of partners together to try and seek out funding and grant opportunities for those projects to help to bear those costs. And that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It could be, yeah. But I might pass that question on to the people online as well to see if they have something to add.
I'll pass it to Phil in a moment, but I just say that it is a very, very good point. And you want to be judicious about any funds allocated to these sorts of engagements and opportunities. And one of the things we did try and do was say, okay, there were 4 opportunities, and for each opportunity, there's a big one and a small one. So we kind of said, okay, for all 4, there's a small project that can be done in kind of maybe a year and a half or a bit more, or a couple of years. And it's a small scale, meant to be something you can wrap your hands around and deliver. And then if that works, then you can scale it. So none of these are costless, absolutely. And you want to do your due diligence before proceeding with any of them. But we did want to make sure that there was kind of a bite-sized project. And then if that works, then you can kind of scale it up. So you're not investing everything right away. Maybe Phil, I'll pass it over to you to kind of comment.
Yeah, and I think, you know, another issue, and as you mentioned, is just sort of the timing of things. So when you're looking at the demo, you don't want to necessarily set up a scale or demonstration that runs for 6 months, and then the greater opportunity is 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Like, there's just too much, you know, and you lose momentum and you lose any knowledge and things like that. So when we're looking at the opportunities, they're paired to something that can happen in whatever that early time frame is. But you do want to think about where that greater opportunity is. So if the greater hydrogen production, ammonia production is further down the road, you're either going to maintain that small scale pilot for a longer period to try to gain some momentum, gain off-takers, show the capabilities, show, you know, all the resources you need, the third party, the response, things like that, and drive that into the larger scale projects that are going, or you delay that pilot scale if you see that the larger scale that you want to kind of give momentum to is going to be delayed as well. So that's where some of those decisions are made on how the rollout is going to go of the greater production.
Thank you, Warden. Now, in reading the whole document, it seems there's a lot of repetition from your own, Phil, the Wheezy report that you had. I wasn't a big supporter of the document, as you're probably aware, but I look at it and I'm thinking, how's a final investment decision going to be made on this? Because it seems a lot of those final investment decisions are done from what I'm reading, and I don't understand, you know, near what you guys do, on global markets. It just seems that that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for local markets. And in, as you mentioned in your numbers, a population of 12,000 people, I worry about spending money on pilots right now when we haven't heard of a final investment decision, or they're not breaking ground, or we don't know if this is going to go ahead. So I worry if these decisions are coming to us or other levels of government, are they going to want to wait before they put any money into it? You know, that either Everwinds or Bearhead is going to make a decision to go ahead. Because you're doing these pilots without having your feedstock to use, I guess, to do this hydro blending or anything else. So what are your thoughts on that, I guess, for the document itself? Like, is this something you're going to bring it with you when you go?
I think Martin wants to maybe start, and then we'll throw it out to the rest after Martin.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. It's another good question. I think, first of all, I don't think it was never the intention that final investment decisions for big capital projects were going to be made off the basis of this study, because it's sort of a high-level overview that provides you a menu of something to dig further into. So I think to reach a final investment decision on a large-scale project, you'd really need to dig into to some of the particulars that are highlighted in this report. To the second part of your question, I don't think you could stand up a pilot project without having secured a supply of fuel, because there would be no case for that pilot project. So whether that's coming from a big export project or that is set up as an export project, or whether it's a smaller, I'm going to use the word pilot again, pilot project on the production side rather than the offtake side, I think you'd certainly need to have, or whether you're importing it from out of province or somewhere, you'd certainly need to have agreed a price point of what you're paying for that fuel that makes sense for your project ultimately. But once again, I'll maybe pass on to see if there's anything to add online.
Yeah. I can, from our standpoint, the larger projects are really based on the Everwind production being on stream, and you look at that opportunity, and they need their market. But that export market is what's going to drive them to make their final investment decisions to create that larger volume of product. What we're envisioning is some of that product, once that main project is going, can also be tailored to some local use cases. So the local market is not going to start the production cycle. It's got to be based on that export market. But I think the whole report was attempting to envision there's still use cases here locally, and what are they in order to use those products that are here, both from a decarbonization perspective and then just availability that it is here and available for different industries to use. So I think really that project is the basis of a lot of this work happening, and so the pilots should kind of go at the right time in order to step into that larger production cycle. But if that production cycle, like I said, defers or what have you, then there's less opportunity that these pilots are going to then progress to anything more than that scale without a large local production.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to draw that to a close. I do want to say that thank you very much for the work that went into this, and to Martin for leading this. I know that when we have conversations about green hydrogen specifically, much of the stuff we've heard at community engagements is, well, what about us, and how does it? What could it mean for this area? And I think that this this document really gives the beginnings of that conversation. And I also thought it did a very nice job of highlighting the unique advantages that the Strait of Canso and the region brings as we look at movement to 2030 and 2050. So really real opportunities for some engaging conversation there. So we're very glad that you took the time to be with us, and thank you very much.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much, Council. Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So we're going to move on now. So for folks following along, we're on item 8 of the agenda, which is the Warden's report. That is on page 19 of your package. If anybody has any questions, happy to entertain those. Hearing none, we'll move on to the CAO's report. So that is in your package from pages 20 to 26. If councillors have anything they'd like to ask of the CAO, happy to hear that.
Yeah, except the ones in the joint industrial park. We're waiting for the mayor in Port Hawkesbury to sign. It gets scanned over to us, and then the warden will sign, and then it gets sent off to Everwent. Yep.
That's a big accomplishment. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's just great to see it done.
It's just one little line on a piece of paper.
3 years.
But it's one, yeah, it really speaks to the importance of those processes. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on to community acknowledgments. So this month's volunteer of the month for April, although not included in your package, but we'll add that a little later on. But I'm happy to talk about David CAO, who is from District 1. Donald CAO. Donald has been a dedicated and long-standing contributor to his community, consistently leading by example through his volunteerism and service on numerous boards and initiatives. Most notably, Donald played a key leadership role in the construction of the new community playground in Arishat, adjacent to Ekalbopor. Donald generously dedicated more than 50 volunteer hours to this project, coordinating dozens of volunteers and donating his own materials, equipment, and fuel to ensure its success. His hands-on leadership, tireless work ethic, and positive attitude were instrumental in keeping the project moving forward and motivating everyone involved. Beyond the hours and resources he contributed, Donald brought people together, fostering a strong sense of community pride and collaboration. Thanks to his vision, leadership, and commitment, the playground is now a complete space that reflects the very best of Arishat's spirit of volunteerism. We are incredibly fortunate to have Donald as a leader in our community. Please join us in recognizing and thanking Donald for his outstanding dedication to service to Richmond County. And before I move on, I'd like to turn the floor over to Councillor Sean Sampson to see if he has something to add.
Yeah, thank you, Warden, for sure, yeah. Yeah, although we're both residents of Arishat at the present moment, like myself, Donald grew up in Sampson's Cove. So I've known Donald, all his life, and he's a lifelong resident of Almadam in Richmond County. And he's worked very hard over the years in the boat building industry. It's, if you see a Sampson 45 boat in the ocean, his handprint is all over those vessels, right? So he's done a good job and worked very hard to the point now where he's an entrepreneur himself and employing many people here on Almadam and in our county, right? So through it all, he's never forgot his roots. He's always remembered where he's come from, and he's always done what he could for the community of Little Lance and the community hall in Little Lance and Sam's Cove. And as mentioned, he did great work constructing that beautiful playground we have here in Arishat. So just want to acknowledge Donald and applaud him and thank him for everything he's done for our community and everything he continues to do, and just congratulate him for being volunteer.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we echo that as well, for sure. Additionally, however, before we move on to other shout-outs, additionally, each year, Richmond County proudly recognizes the contributions of local volunteers by selecting a representative to receive a provincial volunteer award. This individual is chosen from among those honored within Richmond County for their outstanding service and dedication to the community. As part of our ongoing commitment to celebrating volunteerism, the selected representative is invited to attend the annual provincial awards ceremony in Halifax, where they are formally recognized, enjoy a celebratory meal, and connect with fellow volunteers from across the province. This year's Volunteer of the Year is Joan Bona. We are thrilled to announce and honor Joan Bona as our 2026 Volunteer of the Year. Joan wears many hats, often all at once, with humility and never seeking recognition. As President and Secretary of the Catholic Women's League, Chair of the Fleur-de-Lis Seniors Historical Committee, and a lead organizer of the 175th anniversary of Loosedale celebrations, Joan is an active member of the community. From organizing and preserving archival materials for the Historical Committee to chairing the 175th Loosedale Anniversary Committee and everything in between, Joan's passion for contributing to her community is exceptional. She completes each task with local pride. Please join us in recognizing Joan for her hard work, dedication, and commitment to her community. We thank you for all you do for Richmond County. And so I'll turn it over to Councillor Marchand, who is the councillor in the district where Joan.
Thank you, Warden, and I guess you said quite a bit there about Joan. There was another event that Joan was involved in, the Over 40 pageant. It was a pageant that was held back in the 80s, I guess, and she was involved in little tea and snacks event that many people attended, and they played a video from way back then. Not the quality of today's videos, but still it was fun to see some of the ladies, and I think 3 of the 8 are still alive. Some of them just passed away, but yeah, Joan, everything that she does do, she gets a lot of buy-in and help because she's such a pleasant person to work with, and thank her for everything she does for our community. Congratulations, I guess, for receiving the Volunteer of the Year.
Thank you for that. So yes, we again thank you. Congratulations to Joan Bona. Are there any other acknowledgements that we would like to throw out? Is ladies first? Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Councillor Rudd. So I just wanted to do a couple of shout-outs. Number one, the community cleanups have started this spring again, and I'm seeing volunteers out picking up trash out of the ditches, which continues to boggle my mind how that is continuing to be a thing in our communities, but it just seems to have been really bad this last year, and I want to do a huge shout-out, especially to the folks in the river, but everywhere who are doing those community cleanups. And I would like to talk about the breakfast that I went to too, but I feel like I'm okay. Celebration Isle Madame. I just stood in line for breakfast for an hour to Discourse Hall. So I just want to say a huge shout out to Sadie for all of the work. Jacqueline's done a great job, and those community breakfasts have become like a religion for my husband and I. They mean a lot to us, and we try not to miss them. So kudos to those folks. But I'm sure other folks who live closer in the region have a lot more they could say about it. So thank you, Warden.
Usually quiet during this section, but so I was made aware a few weeks ago, as is the tradition in the spring, the 2842 Lordways Army Cadet Corps usually has their annual ceremonial review, which they will host in a couple of weeks. However, in the coming months, I was informed Mr. Terry Clements will be, I think, finally maybe retiring. He may just transition into a
part-time,
full-time volunteer position, but just wanted to acknowledge his great work with that organization over the years. He began that corps in 1974, and I believe it was somewhere in the range of about 40 years he was CEO of that corps, which was apparently a record across the country at that point. Prior to that, in around 1970, 71, somewhere in that range, he began the Air Cadet Squadron in St. Peter's. So he got that off the ground and then moved on to getting the Army Cadet Corps rolling, and has been involved with it ever since. After he turned 65 and had to retire as a CIC officer. He remained as a civilian instructor, and from what I'm told, has decided he will not renew his contract at this time to give somebody else a chance to step in. But being one of the hundreds of people that have gone through that program over the years, I know it meant a lot to a lot of people, and everybody remembers Terry fondly. And anyway, it's great to see he's still involved all these years later, but it sounds like he might finally be taking a little bit of a step back, but I can't see him disappearing entirely. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Thank you very much. I want to echo Deputy Warden's comments about Celebration Almadam. So there was, my gosh, I lost track, but there was the fish cakes on Friday night, and then there was the breakfast in West Arishat, and then they had seafood chowder in the evening on Sunday, and then throughout Almadam, at each of those venues, they had various art displays. So Discouse Hall has opened up that little room has become the art gallery, and will be there till December. And so there was music there, which is great because people got to be entertained instead of just standing in line for over an hour. So really a great thing. And I think I know in Discouse they saw people that they hadn't seen before at the breakfast. So I think it was meant to kind of get local people to kind of make note of the things we have. And as a former high school principal, I must say I would be remiss if I did not. It's a District 5 thing, but Loch Lomond Motocross is up and off the ground again after they were down for a bit, weren't they?
Yeah, that's actually on the CBRM side.
Oh, is it on the CBRM side? There you go. Well, it seems like the Loch Lomond people have been over there, but maybe that's why we didn't hear about it as much. But yeah, I used to hear about the kids talk about it a lot, and so I remember, hearing that it wasn't up and running. But congratulations to them. So not too far from our shores. So thank you everybody for that. So we'll move on to correspondence. We have two items that require some action on our part. So if you're following along in your package, page 28 of 61 has a letter from the VON. So it's from Glenda Kipp, Manager of Home and Community Care, and they are making a request for VON Proclamation Week. So happy to entertain a motion, if moved by Councillor Marchand, that we proclaim the opening of VON Week. The flag is actually embedded in our flag policy. So that's the motion. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden Mumbercat. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. And we'll read that proclamation at the regular council meeting. There's an email from Blair Sampson, beekeeper in Richmond County, about the No Mow May campaign. We certainly see this. I think it's been 5 years. I think it's come up every year around this time. This letter was really helpful to sort of get a sense of why we do that. I don't know that do we need to make a motion to not do something? As in mow, I think. Did we?
We'll take direction.
Yeah.
We'll take direction. If you want to do it in a motion, that's fine. Otherwise, we can take direction that council, because we have an action item that's many moons ago that we do it. I want to say that's at least 2 years old that it's been sitting on the action item list, that going forward, we will observe No Mow May. But if you'd like to give us a motion that council would like to see Public Works respect that again this year in 2026, we'd love to hear it.
I don't think we need to. I think No Mow May is a really recognized event at this point, unless somebody is determined to make it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to remind council and the people at home, if that's okay, that we don't mow until there's a reason to mow at that point.
Yeah.
And once safety or visibility becomes an issue, then Public Works gets the green light to go in.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say, but maybe one little tiny step further, but to encourage residents to also consider observing it. We could use our kind of explanation of what we're doing to encourage others to do so. That'd be great, and I will do my best to mow around the dandelions if the grass gets too long. I love seeing Blair's bees at my house.
Perfect. Okay, so we have some more information items, and so they're a little bit out of sequence. So I'll start with the letter from the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. So that's actually pages 37 to 41 of your package if you're following along. So that letter is a fulfillment of the obligation of the provincial government to give us 12 months notice in the the event that they anticipate costs increasing. So there's been quite a list there. There will be an additional letter, actually it came after the fact, from Emergency Management, which further delineates some of this around the possible costs that could increase going forward from 2027, 28. So that's there. There is a letter from, sorry, I think I've got this. Yeah, so this was the letter from the John A. MacDonald, yeah. And then there's the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. So we had a conversation quite a while back, I want to say January maybe, and we had a really tight turnaround on an application that we were putting in, and we're proud to say that we were successful. So the 6 municipalities that are made up, that make up the commission, Eastern District Planning Commission, so that's Victoria, Inverness, the town of Port Hawkesbury, Richmond, the town of Antigonish and the county of Antigonish will be working with $187,200 to work with consultants to start to have conversations with folks about coastal protection and what that means. So that information is there. There is a letter from the mayor of Lockport, which is similar to other letters we've seen in correspondence regarding Nova Scotia Power and ownership of Nova Scotia Power. And then there is a letter from Jim Kavanagh, who is the fire chief with the Port Hawkesbury Volunteer Fire Department, regarding the Alan J. McEachen Regional Airport Management Committee update.
Port Hastings.
Port Hastings, what did I say? Port Hastings, yes. Oops. Oh, God, I get it. I know, that's how you get in CBC News, I know. So for those watching at home, we have Chief Kavanagh is actually here today, so thank you for joining us. So does anybody have anything they want to talk about with respect to these letters, or do we want to wait for question period to? Okay, so we'll move on, and we do have a question period. Sorry, go ahead.
Something about the letter from the municipal affairs, I guess.
About the increases?
About some of the compliance stuff and fees, and I think around the policing, there was some fees there. Oh, my light is on. There was some fees there because some municipalities have their own policing, and they were still going to be charging them for this registry. Like we are through the RCMP, so our fees will include that. But are there people that are kind of upset about that? Because we were not going to have a separate fee for this management.
Madam Chair, if I may, I believe when we had our meeting with the Minister of Justice last year, she said, I believe there were 6 different records or 3 different record systems for policing in Nova Scotia, and they're trying to get them all onto one. That's part of it. I'll draw your attention to DOJ item number 3, where they say that the funding is still not delivered to the municipalities yet on what the costs this year are going to be. So, as you all know, we're in the middle of budget, and those numbers still aren't fully known to the municipalities. So, there are some issues there, and also the one in on the privacy in that there are new regulations coming down in that one, but we had a call with the folks at Service Nova Scotia who have now been given this file to implement the new changes, and they seem to be doing a really good job of understanding how municipalities work and what some of these regulations and rules are going to mean for us. Like every time a piece of information leaves Canada in our everyday business, we have to be able to report that and account for that. So these rules are coming in, and we're already starting to work on it. They know that it's going to be a manpower issue, it's going to be an IT issue. We just don't know how big an issue at this point until we see the final products from these folks. So there's a lot of stuff coming from the province to municipalities, and we're doing the best we can.
Councillor Marshall?
Thank you, Ward. On that one, Troy, on the DOJ number 3, it seems they say they've given a multi-year financial plan already. So have they given that, but there's no definitive on that?
There isn't, because they have changed their services over the last couple of years, and they're trying to do a new model and saying that costs will be commensurate with the services that each municipality gets, but we don't know what that is yet. We haven't seen what those numbers are yet.
For the 26,
for 26, 27. We don't know yet, and you're talking about a $2.4 million cost to our municipality that can swing by a couple $100,000 in a year. Well, that's a couple cents on our tax rate if we don't know it. So it's not the best.
Okay. So
but,
then,
they're trying to do the best they can as well, I'm sure.
so what I'm reading here, then the multi-year financial plan, that's not accurate.
Well,
Okay.
It is. They're working on a multi-year plan, but we don't have the numbers.
I got the impression it was already sent to us.
That is one of the pieces that Kathleen is still waiting for.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So for folks who follow this kind of thing, the review of checks is available online, pages 48 to 52. If anybody has any questions about the checks from last month, happy to have some conversations about that. Otherwise, we'll move on to the review of action items. So pages 53 to 61, for folks who like to follow this kind of thing, any motions of council get captured there, so it's a way for us all to be able to kind of track progress on those. Are there any questions regarding the action item list? We had no items added to the agenda, so we'll now open up for a 15-minute question period. We take questions from the gallery, or we take questions by phone as well. So 902-226-9885, there's always a slight delay. So if anyone has any questions, we would be happy to entertain those, or we would take any online.
Most definitely do.
Come on over.
I know, I was a little nervous. Yeah.
Old age kicking in.
There you go. So you're going to click the button and wait for it to turn red. Oh, there it is. And then we just
Even
read your
done
name.
for me.
Just say your name.
My name is Jim Kavanagh. I'm the fire chief in Port Hastings, not in Port Hawkesbury. And I guess my questions are certainly about the letter that I gave into the report that was given for the Allen J. McCackern Airport with some misleading information. That would be the easiest way to put it. I've been looking for years, and I don't think there's been any adoption for it, to have somebody from emergency services sit on that committee. Because the idea of today of calling 911 and all your problems are going to be solved is a dream in the best world. There's definitely some potential dangers there. I'm not saying directly at the airport, but it's directly involved with the airport. Be it on approach or be it on takeoff, it's still a danger because of what's coming in at the airport. Now, I'm a full supporter of the airport. It brings a lot of economic benefit to the area, but it also puts a lot of gray hair on my head. Every time you see planes coming in, we all seen the weekend the size of the military plane came in there. Them on approach or them on takeoff, there is a significant danger there. There's no water support there whatsoever. So right now we would be hauling any kind of water from the Tourist Bureau in Port Hastings. The topic of dry hydrant that's there, seen no plans, have no plans, and no consultation of what that could cure, what kind of, as some of the questions was brought up in my letter, what kind of replenishment value there is there. If we take 10,000 gallons out of it, it's going to take 2 days to put 10,000 gallons into it, which is not much good to us. You guys have bet the dry hydrant thing to death over the last number of years, and you're very well educated in it. But it's a very important place to have a water supply. Just because we're a fire department that's 3 kilometers away, don't mean it takes us 3 minutes to get there. I'm 35 minutes away from my fire station right now if my pager goes off. Welcome to the world of volunteer. But I would still like to have some kind of representation on the emergency services side to sit at that table.
Can I don't want to tell you to stop talking because happy to hear it, but I'm happy to hear you continue with other issues. But I'm wondering if you've made a good suggestion, and I'm wondering if there's a motion that anybody would like to make to kind of move forward on that one. Deputy Warden?
Thanks, Warden. And thank you for bringing that up, Jim. So I would make a motion to recommend that emergency management services be represented on the airport management committee, and how that would work out. I think we can work out, but I would leave the motion at that, and then to be considered by the airport management committee.
So we would make a motion,
Yeah.
so the motion would be that the committee of the whole recommend to council that the warden write a letter asking on behalf of council to have a member of emergency services represented at the airport committee. Seconded by Councillor Brent Sampson. Is there any discussion on that?
Would that satisfy? I guess, Jim, would that satisfy some of the concern that you're having if we can formally request that and then at least have the discussion? And is that satisfactory to you for?
I think it's definitely where we have to start. We have to start at the bottom and work our way up. I have no clue how the airport runs, and that's not what I'm asking for. The unfortunate side of it, when, oh crap happens, we're the ones coming, and it'd be nice to have a stake in that to kind of say, okay, this is what we have, this is what we can come with, this is a plan we have if something bigger happens. So it would be nice to get that across, and knowing that, just calling 911, like I said, is not going to be the answer for all. We don't have all the equipment that's needed to handle an airport, crash there. No one does. But it's definitely a perfect first stop. Yep.
So, motion on the floor. Do you have a question or some comment on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Marchand.
When you're saying a member of emergency services, you mean someone in the fire departments, isn't it? Not our emergency service committee, and it's the fire department.
Which emergency service committee? Sorry.
Fire service committee.
No, I said emergency service.
You're more wanting a fire department, like somebody from them, from their department, okay.
That was my intent, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there any other discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion for me to write a letter to that effect, signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Motion carried. So, back to you now, because I cut you off, but I wanted to get that kind of captured. So, are there other asks that would kind of be top of mind for your department?
Well, I think it's like anything else. If you're going to take on a whole new aspect of firefighting, nothing is cheap in firefighting. When you're living on a municipal budget and selling bingo cards every Thursday night to try to put fuel in the trucks and trucks in your door, aircraft firefighting is a specialty of itself. We don't have the gear to do it. None of our turnout gear is capable of doing any kind of aircraft fire. Well, like I say, with very limited water supplies. I mean, my plan right now is actually taking a truck off the island here to come up and help me if something happens there, because if there's no water supply, I have to travel water in. So as part of the pre-plan that we have, they're coming from a big distance around. So that doesn't only deplenish everything we have, but it's also going to take some of the resources off every other fire department that I call to be able to come and help them. That's what mutual aid does. That's exactly what we were put in play for years ago. But I think there's got to be something more in play there and a little bit more gear that we can deal with, be it, more foam that we can tap into, a water supply we can tap into, or some funding to help the fire departments, and maybe not only our fire department, because if it's going to come in, it's going to be a mutual aid response. We're not going to be able to do that by ourselves. And maybe something to look in through our mutual aid association or whatever for some funding for some specialty gear that you need there, specialty training you're going to need there, or whatever is going to be the possibility of something happening there.
I wonder, we kind of work in motions, right? So I'm wondering if there is an appetite for a motion to have this sort of brought to the airport committee to then go to the member units and ask for some support from them in terms of putting this on the docket for conversations with the province. Or thoughts to, I'm looking at you, Deputy Warden, because you sit on, and Councillor Sampson, you sit on those committees, that committee.
So what I'm thinking is the start of the conversation would be around having emergency management as part of that airport management committee. I think that's where we could start to have those conversations about what we think the gaps are. We may even want to look at, the airport management committee may decide to do some work in that regard and understand a little bit more about what is in place now, what are the gaps that we could be facing, and then I think we would maybe engage with the province, you know what I mean, in that regard.
Go ahead.
as part of our establishment of the new regional emergency management, the airport, along with Point Upper and some other points in the 4 counties around here, have been identified as first part of the SWOT analysis that's going to take place. So I definitely think it's a good opportunity through our newly established REMO to have that airport and have some of that work, see what the gaps are, see what some of the planning and strategy should be. That's a perfect opportunity to use this as one of our first tests to see how well we can come together and come up with a plan for that.
I have so for folks who are watching at home, the letter that you wrote was on our agenda and we just sort of breezed through it. But we did that because we knew you were here and we had hoped to kind of have this opportunity. But I am wondering, what is a go-forward item in terms of, let's say, the disparity between what we heard a month ago and what we got in the letter from you? There is open water, let's say, between those two bits of information that we received. So we heard information about, for example, money that went to your department. And we received information from you about that not being entirely accurate, except admittedly some money back in, I think, 2019. So I'm wondering if there's a role for us in terms of sending the information from you to make sure that it's received by the committee so that there can be some sort of explanation, whether it's to us or to the board itself. But, you know, I feel like we are owners of information that should be sitting in front of that committee. So whether it's that our members take it back as an agenda item, that specific sort of discrepancy and disparity. So wondering if there's thought on that.
Thanks, Warden. I think if we do capture that in a motion, what will happen is it will end up on our action list, so it remains reportable at this table. But what I would suggest, I guess, or what I would do is make a motion right now to recommend to Council to send your letter as official correspondence to the Airport Management Committee, specifically so that it will land on the agenda for discussion. And then that way, it will create both a discussion at the Airport Management Committee level and also be reportable back to this council, which I think is important. Yeah, I agree. We want to close, put a bridge over that open water, right? Yes. So, yeah. Okay. So we've got a motion on the floor to send the correspondence essentially as an attachment from us, asking that the items in that letter be tabled as agenda items at the upcoming meeting, which will then have on our agenda so that we can get some feedback. And we do have 2 people on that committee. So that's the motion on the floor. Can I have a seconder? We have a seconder over here. We have no shortage of seconders. So Councillor Marchand, is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. So we've got those 2 items, which doesn't solve the problem, but I do hope that it cements it as an agenda item for us, as an action item for us. And yeah, so is there anything else you want to?
No, I'm good. I just wanted to, I guess. I almost shut myself off there. I just wanted to get, I'd like to get this ball rolling and make it work out. It's not, we're not going to find a solution overnight. I'm sure I'll beat a dead horse when we look at the dry hydrant issue here. It's been years coming, but look where you're at. So I think if we don't start at the ground floor, what we're doing now, we'll be the same place in 5 years down the road as we were 5 years ago. Would I love to be able to say, okay, you're going to cut me a $2 million check and I could buy all the gear I wanted? Absolutely, and bring me another 50 firefighters that I could do it? No, we know that's not going to happen. But if we don't get starting what we're doing now, I think we got to take baby steps first and then work our way to where we want to be down the road to make it successfully, both, as a business bringing it into the area, but to make sure they're coming and going safely, and it's not putting my people at risk either. So
that's right. Yeah, great point.
Thank you very much, Chief. We really appreciate you taking the time, so much time, to be. You got here really early, so to be sure you didn't miss anything.
And then we were late.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, any other questions from the gallery? No?
A comment. You may want to consider having your Richmond County Emergency Services Coordinator
Okay, that can be. Yeah, so rather than drag you all the way over here. So the comment question from Paul Cheers, who's with us here this evening, sitting over to the side, was that we may want to consider having the emergency management
Emergency Services Coordinator.
Emergency Services Coordinator, sorry, be a part of that, and I think that that's maybe a conversation for Remo as well. So we'll take some advice on that. Thank you. Okay, so we didn't hear anybody calling while we were in the midst of that. So seeing there's no further business on the agenda, the committee of the whole meeting tonight is adjourned. And thank you very much, both of you, for coming in.